What is going on, guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be working on a friend of mine's 2017 F250 with the 6.7 Powerstroke. We have quite a few things to get done on this truck today, including a kit from MDDP, which is a Cat oil filter conversion kit. This is going to allow us to run the much larger Cat style oil filter. We're also going to be swapping out the steering stabilizer, the rear shocks, which turn out to be quite a challenge, and both fuel filters. So let's get through the intro and jump right into today's video. Now that we've gotten through the intro, let's take a look at exactly what we're working with today. So as you guys can see, this is a 17 F250 with the 6.7 Powerstroke. Pretty decent looking truck here, but we've got a whole bunch of parts for this thing to do basically a full maintenance care plan today. So if we take a look over here on the back of my truck, we've got all kinds of parts here. So we're gonna start off right up top. So we've got some new oil for it, an air filter, we've got a fuel filter here, and then what I believe is maybe another fuel filter down there in the box. Then we've got some extra clips. I believe these go with the fuel filter itself, which we have right here. Then we have ourselves a oil filter adapter for this Cat filter. I believe it's an MDDP kit, which we have the paperwork for it right here. So we want to get this on. It's gonna give him extra capacity and just a bigger filter in general. Then it looks like he's got some takeoff shocks from a Tremor edition F250. So we'll try to get those on this afternoon as well. I think there's some parts left in there. There's a steering stabilizer right there. I believe also a takeoff from a relatively new truck. And then down here, we do have a track bar. Now, I'm not sure if we're gonna get to doing the track bar today. I'm gonna see if his even needs it. If it doesn't, it's just a stock replacement track bar, so don't think we're gonna do it unless his truck needs it. But if it needs it when we get there, we will go ahead and do it. So first thing that we're gonna start off with is fuel. I wanna try to get all the fuel filters done and get those out of the way. Then we'll go ahead and do the oil, get the oil filter adapter on it, get all that type maintenance-y stuff done, the air filter and stuff, and then we can move on to start doing some of the hard parts like the shocks and stuff. So let's go ahead and get the hood popped on this thing, start getting everything draining, and get to work. I don't really trust that hood for some reason. So the first one we're gonna do is the fuel filter down here on the driver's side door. So we're gonna get under there, we've got to drain the water separator, and then we can start pulling that filter out. We are gonna need a ratchet and an 8mm socket. Now that we've located the fuel water separator underneath the truck, we're gonna go ahead and get our water sensor unplugged right here. Just push down on this tab and that'll slide off. Then we can turn this counterclockwise to open it up, and then that's where our drain pan is going to come into play. This is going to drain out some water fuel mixture, mostly water. Then we can start undoing the 8mm bolts around the perimeter of this little cover and get that slid down out of our way. Sometimes pushing in on that, then pushing the tab down makes it a little easier to get it off. Then I'm going to tuck this, try to get it up out of our way a little better, just like so. That'll work for now. Now we can go ahead and open this guy up. So you'll feel it click, and then you want to go the rest of the way with it. And we're going to let that drain for a few minutes. While we're letting the fuel filter drain, I'm going to go ahead and start popping the air filter out. So we've just got these little plastic clips all the way around the air filter here. Then we'll have one plug right over here. Slide the little lock tab out underneath. You just pull it out. Then there's a tab you can push down and it'll unplug. You can't see this thing so tall, but there we go. Air filter is opened up, and now we can go ahead and pull that out. If there's stuff in there, we'll vacuum it out while we're here, and we can grab the new filter and get it dropped in there. Actually looks really clean in there, guys. Take a look down in there. That's super clean. I'm happy with that. So let's go ahead, grab the new air filter. We'll match it up and get it dropped in. Yeah, I'd say they're the same. I always verify because I've ran into issues before. So go ahead, get this one set in there and close that air box back up. Then we can start latching these back down. Make sure it's still seated all the way around, which it is. Go ahead, see if this needs resetting. If it does, we'll hit it. Yep, it did. Did need resetting. So that went ahead and sprung back. And now we can go ahead and get this plug back in. Now you could probably do it without unplugging this. I just do it because I don't want to pull on the wires. So make sure that's in all the way, and then the little tab underneath, lock it back in, give it a tug, make sure it's good. Air filter is changed. Let's get back to that fuel filter. So we let this drain for as long as it took me to do the air filter. So we're gonna go ahead and close this up. Same thing, turn it the opposite direction. You'll feel it close and then you'll feel it click, just like so. Now that is fully seated. Now we can get our drain pan out of here. I'm gonna put a little drip pan, little lower wall so we have more room to work. And we'll start undoing these 8mm bolts. I believe there's 5 of them around the whole thing. I didn't like how it felt, so I'm gonna go 1/4 inch drive by hand, break them free first. Now keep a hand on this as you're loosening the last bolt. We should have all the fuel out of it, but always be careful. Wiggle this a little. Pull this up to the side. And there we go. We got our first fuel filter out. Let's bring it over to the bench. We'll get the new one switched in and get it back together. Now we can swap this filter out and get it back in. All right, so we've still got our old filter installed. It's honestly very easy to do this. So there's actually an arrow right here that says remove. So we're simply just gonna slide it over. You'll feel it on the latch and this will come right out of there. I'm gonna set this in our drain bucket to keep it from dripping diesel everywhere. We'll grab our new filter and our new O-ring and get those swapped in. Went ahead and hit that with a little bit of brake clean. Go ahead, grab a pick. Breezy out here today, all my stuff's flying away on me. And carefully pop this O-ring out. Grab our new one. Again, I always match these things up just to be safe here. So I matched it up, it looks right. So we're gonna go ahead and install it. Got our O-ring here. I'm gonna grab our new filter and we're gonna do the same thing that we did before, but in reverse. So to take it off, we went that way. To put it on, we're gonna go this way. So start over to that side, push down a little bit, pull over, give it a little pull. Feels good to me. So let's go ahead, get under the truck and get it reinstalled. Now we're just gonna reverse the steps in which we took it off. So this is gonna be a little wobbly on you still, that's fine. We're just gonna have to get this up in there. Hold this guy out of our way. This truck was rear-ended at one point, and I think this shifted forward a little because it's a little tighter than I remember these being. But go ahead, make sure we get this in place where it needs to be. Should feel it kind of sit where it wants. I'm gonna go ahead, run those in with the little 1/4 inch ratchet real quick. Now if you guys want to torque these, you can. I believe it's 7 foot-pounds. It doesn't need a whole lot because it's going into plastic and it is an O-ring steel. So just be careful you don't strip these things out. You'll feel when they bottom out and then just barely snug it past that. You go much more and you will strip these things. All right. Make sure that is latched, which it is. Now we can grab our water sensor. And we're good under here. Let's go up top and do the fuel filter in the engine bay. So I don't know how well you guys can see up in here, but I'm gonna take a rag or two and we're gonna stuff it underneath these lines because there's a good chance some fuel will come out of these. So we're just gonna try to catch as much of it as possible. So we're gonna start with this first one here. We can kind of turn it sideways, pull it out like so. So you can see we turned it, pulled this red piece up, comes right up. And then on the sides here, we need to squeeze. If you got big fingers like me, it can be a pain, but you just squeeze this piece right here. So from the factory, this one would be a little bit different. He's got one of the disaster prevention kits on this truck. So normally you'd have a blue tab here that you had to push to the side and then forward towards the truck, and this clip would pop out. But on this one, it's just a simpler, you squeeze. There's a blue spot here and a blue one on the bottom. You squeeze it and kind of pull back, and that one gets right out of our way. And then I believe this is still a factory one. So we're just gonna simply squeeze those slightly in, push down with it, and that red tab will come down. It's just a locking tab like the rest of them. And then once you get that done, we can just wiggle it back, just like so. And there's a little bit of fuel in that one. And now we can get this filter right up out of our way. So normally you would have to turn it a little bit, like so. I want to be careful because there is fuel in it. So tilt it back as best we can and get it right up out of there, and we will get our new filter. This new one came with a little cap on this line. Now if we open this first, we could take this cap, put it on the old one right there, so that when you take the filter out, you have a lot less chance of spilling fuel. But we did it pretty good without making a mess today, so we'll just throw that off to the side. Those are handy to hang on to sometimes. But then down here at the bottom of the filter, you can see this little nub right here. That's what actually locks this thing down. So that's why we had to turn it to get it out. So when we put this in, we're gonna kind of put it in towards the firewall, turn it towards the side of the truck, which will lock it in, and then we can hook all of our lines back up. So like I said, we're gonna go in with this one kind of towards the firewall back here, kind of like so. Keep our lines out of the way. It's gonna go down, and then it should turn. There, now it can't come out of there. So now we can go ahead and put these lines back on in the reverse order we took them off. Slide the little red tab up. That one will clip in place as well. Slide our tab down. And our new fuel filter is installed. So now we can start moving on to getting the oil changed in this thing. Now that we've got all the fuel system and fuel filter stuff out of the way, let's move on to installing the MDDP Cat oil filter kit. So he ordered this kit up, and I believe he went with the bigger of the oil filter options. This is the 1R-1807. If I can find the kit, I will link it down in the description below. But this kit comes with the filter that you choose. It comes with the adapter and then also some Loctite. So once we get the factory filter off, we'll go ahead and brake clean everything up really good. We want to make sure there's no oil on the threads. We're going to put a little bit of the Loctite that comes with the kit on these female threads or the male threads on the engine side. Then we can tighten this thing down. I believe they call for 25 foot-pounds, so we'll make sure that's nice and snugged up. Then we can fill this Cat filter, get it on the truck, and fire this thing up. So let's go ahead and get this thing swapped out. So first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and get the oil draining. So we have a 16mm socket here and our little drain pan. Go ahead and pop this guy free. Go ahead, let this thing drain for a couple minutes here, get all the oil out of it, and then we'll pull the filter off. So we've been letting this thing drain for a little while. I'm just gonna let it keep drip draining. It's not bothering anything. And we're gonna go ahead and pop the factory oil filter free here. If I can get it to loosen up on us. Holy crap. Wow. Alright guys, I'm gonna let this thing sit here and drain since we need to clean that whole surface up to get this kit installed. So we're just gonna let it drip drain for a few minutes here, and we'll start cleaning it up. Let this thing drip for a while. We're gonna go ahead and put the drain plug back in. We'll tighten this down. I'm just gonna snug it up, but if I know the torque spec, I'll put it up on your guys' screen for you. So as you guys can see, this is where the factory oil filter goes, and you can see the O-ring actually got stuck from the factory filter, so we'll make sure we take this off and get it out of our way. If you were just putting a factory filter on, you'd want to make sure you got that off so it didn't sandwich and then give you an oil blowout. So we got that out of the way. This thing's still dripping decently, so Might have to give it another minute or two here. As you guys seen, we let this thing drip for a while until it is no longer dripping oil. Now I'm gonna use some brake clean, get this thing really cleaned up. Make sure we focus on these threads, get any oil off of those before we put some Loctite in here to try to tighten down the new adapter plate, and then we can get our new filter in. All right, we got those threads pretty cleaned up. Now I'm gonna put some Loctite on them and on the little plate, and we'll get it tightened down. All right, so I've got a bunch of the Loctite on the female threads of the adapter. Everything's oil free as far as where the threads seat. And now we can go ahead and put our plate on. Now, I always put a little bit of oil on the O-rings portion, but we're trying to keep the threads completely oil free, so just keep that in mind. All right, let's go ahead and get this thing threaded on here. I kept the threads 100% oil free, not too worried about where the O-ring itself is. Now that we've got our torque wrench set to 25 foot-pounds, we'll torque it down. All right, we're good to go there. Let's grab our filter, get it filled up, and put it on. So we've been topping this filter off a little bit, and it sucks a bunch down, so we're pretty much full now. We got it topped right about off, soaked a bunch down. It took a little over 2 quarts, so it takes a lot of oil to fill this filter up. So just keep that in mind. Capacity is a good thing, but when you go to fill your truck, keep in mind it's gonna take at least an extra quart. This thing is pretty heavy when it's full. And if you're gonna run this filter, I would keep in mind I wouldn't do any crazy off-roading because this thing hangs down pretty far. Be one of the first things you'd whack. I mean, the front end is a little bit lower than it, but could still hop up on a rock and take this thing out pretty easily. So we're gonna go till it touch, and then we're gonna go 1 full turn. So it's tight right here. I'm gonna crank it down, and this thing will be good. We can fill it with oil. All right, let's fill this thing up with oil and fire it up. All right, looks like it's full, guys. So we'll go ahead, prime the fuel system a couple times, and then get this thing fired up. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and try to prime the fuel system a couple times, and then we'll try to crank this thing up. So let's hit the key without hitting the brake and see if it'll like prime like a normal one would. I think I hear a fuel system running. Sounds like it. So it should be priming the system. Yeah, it sounds like its tone just changed. So it just filled up with fuel.
Don't hear anything up here.
I could physically hear the sound of the pump change when it was pumping the air out. Start this thing up, guys. Oil pressure looks good. We'll go ahead and let this thing run for just a second. I'll check for leaks, and then we will shut it off and check the oil. I don't see any leaks back here. Don't see any leaks up there. Oil filter all looks good. Those drips on the ground were there before. Yeah, everything looks good, guys. Let's go ahead and start working on the shocks or the steering stabilizer. The next thing that we're gonna work on is swapping out this steering stabilizer. So we've got an 18 on this side and a 15 down on that side. So let's go ahead and try to zap this thing apart. All right, we're gonna leave that one like that for a second and start working on getting this other side popped off. I'm sure this isn't the best view for you guys, but it's kind of what we're working with here on the ground. Oh, I'm gonna need a bigger hammer than this, I think. So I've been heating this thing with a torch for a while because it didn't want to pop easily, and then we just kept heating the steering arm part of it, not the stabilizer itself, just heating around here to try to expand that so that the cone will come up. And then I went ahead and gave it a good whack right here, and as you can see, it started hopping. So now I need to let that cool down for a second because it's really hot, and we can pop that out of there and get the new one on. All right, we got this thing out. Let's size it up next to the new one, make sure it's good, and then we will install the new one. So we can go ahead and get the new steering stabilizer up in place, try to do it one-handed here. Do that, and then we can get the other side, the bolt started, and tighten this nut down. I'm gonna go right about there. That's sandwiched down flat, just like it should. Do the same thing on this side, we'll tighten that one down. All right, he did supply this arm here, but I don't really think there's any reason to change it. I'll talk to him if he wants me to, I'll do it anyways, but this one looks pretty solid right now. Doesn't look like it really needs it, so we'll go ahead and hold off on that one. Let's go take a look at the rear shocks. We're gonna start working on the rear shocks for now. So as you guys can see, he did pick up some Tremor shocks. Now I think these were like a new takeoff of a wrecked truck or something like that, or someone upgraded. They do say Tremor on them, so I'm gonna assume they go for the Tremor F250. Now I thought those trucks were lifted, but I totally could be wrong. I'm not a Ford guy, so we'll go ahead and get his stock ones pulled off the rear, size these up, make sure that they're gonna work for him, and get them slapped on there. As you guys can see, these are the shocks that are still on the truck. We're gonna start with this one on the passenger side. Looks pretty tight to get up there and get that top bolt loose, so we're gonna have to use a wrench. It's wedged right up against something, either the frame or I'm not sure what that plate is, but we're gonna go ahead, try to get that off. I believe it is a welded stud to the frame at least, so we should just have to undo the nut and try to slide it out of there. Then this bottom one's pretty self-explanatory, so let's go ahead, get that one loosened up and try to get this thing off here. Bigger than a 17, so it's gotta be an 18. And then the other thing I'm worried about here, guys, is I don't know how we're gonna get that shock out of there, because it's gonna hit that frame piece thing. It's for the fifth wheel, it looks like. Now that we got it broke loose, I'm just gonna go ahead and zap it with the electric ratchet. See if we can't run this out and let the shock just pop down. I think that shock's pretty shot. Yeah, that shock's pretty smoked. I don't know how well you guys can even see it right now, but he has a fifth wheel on this truck, and that's making it a problem for us. And I'm worried that we're not even going to be able to get the shock out of there with the fifth wheel in place, but we're going to try. Got the nut out, but now is the shock going to clear? I don't think so. As you guys can see, the rear passenger shock is right up against the brace for the fifth wheel hitch. Now the proper thing to do here would be to take out all the bolts for the fifth wheel, drop the whole plate out of the way, but he doesn't use it and this thing's pretty rusted, so he said I could just go ahead and notch it, try to cut it out and make it fit. He never plans on using it. Now like I said, the proper way to do it would be to drop the fifth wheel, but it's a pretty common problem and a lot of people just go ahead and notch it, so that's exactly what we're going to try to do. So let's hope we can notch this thing enough to get this shock out of here. Not sure how well or if you guys can see it all. I'm just trying to get this thing done right now, but I went a little bit overboard with how much I'm cutting just because I don't want to have to recut and I want to get this shock out of here. So we're cutting all the way back here. Could have used a hole saw, but this shock has a big head on it, so I want to make sure we're going to be able to get that thing out. So I'm going to go ahead and keep grinding away and see if we can't get this thing out of here. Finally. Alright, let's see if I got enough room to get it out now. Probably still not quite. That was absolutely brutal, guys. We got it though. Now the question is, can we get the new one back on? So let's grab that and see if we can get it in there. I don't know if you guys can see up there, but I did finally get the new shock on, but I did end up having to pull this sidemost bolt out. So we got that one off. I had to pull the nut for that one off too. Got this bolt out, and then we were finally able to weasel this thing up and in there. That was the worst shock change I think I've ever had to do, just because we had to either take that whole fifth wheel out or cut that plate. Now granted, cutting it's not the best option, but for this truck it's perfectly fine. He's never planning to use that fifth wheel, and even if he does, that thing is so thick and heavy, I think you'd be perfectly fine unless you were trying to tow like a semi-load. So I think this thing will be perfectly fine. Let's go ahead and get that shock bolt and nut tightened back down, and we can do the other side. All right, let's go ahead and pop this shock off. Alright, got this one out. Let's see if I have enough strength left in me to get this in without a jack. Hand hammer, there we go. Alright, I think we're good, guys. Let's go ahead and drop this thing back down and take it for a ride. I went ahead, fired this thing back up, backed it up a little bit, just letting it run. I wanted to get it up to temperature. Now that we got everything on it, I don't see any leaks at all, no oil leaks, no fuel leaks, so that's a good sign. Shocks are on. We got the steering stabilizer done, so I think this thing is just about ready. Now I did find an arm up here in the front that he's gonna have to replace at some point, but for now I think it's gonna be good. I'll have him order up one of those arms and we'll get it done later on. But for now, let's go take it for a ride, pick him up, and he can come get this thing. It's honestly a pretty nice truck. I'm not a Ford guy, but I do like the interior on this one. I don't hear any clunks, bangs, anything like that. No weird lights, oil pressure looks good, all the things. So really happy with that. Seems to be driving pretty good. We'll definitely have to have him get that arm, but other than that, I think this thing is pretty well dialed. So we'll head back to the house and he can come pick this thing up. Alright guys, so as you've seen, we got everything on our list checked off today, and the truck is back out on the road ready for many more miles. Now I have to say, that shock replacement was absolutely ridiculous. I was very surprised that Ford put it in that location with the fifth wheel bracket right there from the factory. Now after we took a look at the truck, I already knew that that was going to be a problem before I even hopped on Google. Once I did, I realized that this is a widespread issue that is already well known about. But I don't do a whole lot of work on these particular trucks, so I was unaware of it. But once we got in there, I was pretty aware of it pretty quickly. So in our situation, this truck has well over 250,000 miles, and he plans to keep this thing basically forever and just keeping up on the basic maintenance, and he never plans to tow heavy with it. So we made the executive decision to go ahead and cut the fifth wheel plate. Now if you guys tow heavy or you don't want to cut your fifth wheel plate, there are some other options out there. You can always drop the fifth wheel bracket itself, swap the shock, and then put it all back up. Or I also believe that there's a kit out there that lets you cut that stud or drill it out and replace it with a bolt after you get the fifth wheel bracket out of the way, so that in the future, all you have to do is drop that bolt and it's a simple shock change. So once we got done with that, everything else was pretty much smooth sailing. The MDDP Cat oil filter conversion kit is a very nice, straightforward, simple to install kit. Now, if you guys use the truck around the farm or off-roading, you might want to look into some other options, but if you put a lot of highway miles on, I think it's a great kit. My only complaint with it is all of the ground clearance that you lose because of the length of the filter, but that is by no fault of the kit itself. It's just where Ford put the oil filter, and if you want to gain length of the oil filter, you're going to lose ground clearance. So that's something to keep in mind. I think it's a phenomenal kit, and once again, if you tow a lot or you put a lot of highway miles on, or even just road miles, I definitely recommend looking into this kit. And then of course we wanted to get the steering stabilizer done, which fought me a little bit off camera, but once we put some heat to it and just kept beating on it with the sledgehammer, we finally got it to pop off. The fuel filters were very straightforward and pretty easy to change, but we had to get them done anyway, so I figured I'd lump them into this video so that you 6'7" guys have a whole basic maintenance package here. So as always, I appreciate you guys for checking out the channel. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, ring that bell, and check us out on all of our other social media platforms: Facebook, TikTok, and Bought to Build Official on Instagram. Also, just in case you haven't heard, we did decide to open up YouTube memberships. So if that's something that interests you, or you're just looking for a way to help support the channel, make sure to head over to the page and check that out. As always, I appreciate you for sticking around to the end, and we will catch you on the next one.